Thank you so much for joining us for the 7th annual Alexander Valley Film Festival. It has been a whirlwind of a year, and we are super excited for this festival, which is already our second online Alexander Valley Film Festival. And one of the amazing things about that is that it's allowed us to connect with directors all over the world. So when you meet the directors for this film block, we're talking to people who are located in Los Angeles and New York, Greece, and Iceland right now, which is probably something we wouldn't be able to do if we were all meeting in person. So online connection has its silver linings, and I'm super thrilled to be here today. Before we begin, I do want to make our land acknowledgement. Alexander Valley Film Society recognizes that we are on unceded lands of the Coast Miwok, Pomo, and Wapo. We respectfully acknowledge the Indigenous people who have lived here for thousands of years and who continue to contribute in meaningful ways to their communities and to our society as a whole. Our shared history includes the genocide, forced removal, and ethnic cleansing of Indigenous people. AVFS is committed to centering Indigenous voices and stories, to recognize the past and celebrate the resiliency of Native people and their culture. Our deepest thanks go to Nikki Myers-Lim and the California Indian Museum and Cultural Center, and to Clint McKay from the Pepperwood Preserve for their assistance with this acknowledgement. Please visit our website at avfilmsociety.org/equity. If you need any tech assistance at any point during the festival, you can visit our website at avfilmsociety.org/FAQ for the live chat feature, which is available between 6 a.m. and 8 p.m. daily. And we are providing live audio captioning through Zoom, so you can turn that on by clicking CC at the bottom of your screen. And we have kind of a short window of time to talk with a lot of people about a lot of wonderful films, but I will introduce everyone now. We are here with Olivia Peace. They are the director of TAHARA, which is the feature film linked in this block of narratives. And then we also have TAHARA's writer, Jess Zeidman. And we paired 2 coming-of-age LGBTQIA short films with this feature. So we are also here with Artemis Anastasiadou, who directed the film I Am Mackenzie. Hi, Artemis.
Hi.
And last but certainly not least, we have Karín Lárusdóttir, who wrote the film XY. Directed the film XY, but you also wrote it, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And Anna's with us from Iceland. Welcome, everyone.
Thank you.
Hello.
Oh. So I think I'm going to get started by just asking a question that is for everyone. I would love to hear, since all of your films have gotten screenings over the past year or year plus, I'd love to hear about what it's been like to screen these films for general audiences and how that may differ from what it's like to screen for specifically LGBTQIA audiences. I think all of these are films that have been shown in festivals, some of which were like queer and trans specific and some of which were more general.
I think that's a really good question. I mean, I can, I guess, speak to our film. We actually got the opportunity to screen in person back in January of 2020. So like a couple of months before the world, well, before things in the US like officially closed down. And that was a really cool experience, just like getting people in person, like in a space together to watch the movie. Yeah, so I feel really lucky that we got to do that. But then we also got to screen at Outfest and at Frameline and a couple of other like LGBT festivals. And I think there was a lot of messages that I would get. I don't know about you, Jess, from people who would say like, oh yes, like this reminds me of my childhood. So I think it seems a lot more like people were really seeing themselves in the narrative in like a really organic way. That felt really special. So it was really nice.
Yeah, definitely. I was going to say the same thing Olivia had mentioned. We got to screen at the Slam Dance Film Festival, and we screamed. No, we didn't. But we premiered at Slam Dance, really not knowing that we were not going to see each other again for a minute. But I think since then we've been able to screen with lots of queer fests, and I think the main difference, at least in my opinion, is I think it becomes a much more personal conversation about the messages and themes of the film. Whereas at a general fest, though it's been absolutely lovely, we talk a lot more about the logistics of the film. So I think those sorts of differentiations of conversation really speak to a larger way that I think queer folks are thinking about, like, the why of the film, and most film festivals are like the how of the film, you know, like how did you get to this point where you're screening with us, and less so about the story and the emotion behind the film.
Yeah, with me, like I also got to screen mine, you know, basically before COVID happened here in Iceland, and it actually screened at like few festivals here. We have like, I don't know, 4 festivals or something in Iceland in general, and it screened at them. And for me, it was just interesting to like, because this film is about like intersex. So usually the conversations always revolve around that rather than, you know, how the film was crafted or something, which I feel is just like makes so much sense, and it is what like I want with this film. And it has also been screened at like some queer festivals all around the world, and like even like countries that like I wouldn't think like they would, I don't know, maybe I have like some prejudice or something against some countries, because countries like they have gone so, like it's different how far they have gone, like in these, you know what I mean. So, but it has been like really interesting to see like how, you know, many people are actually starting to, you know, think about intersex and trying to understand it, and people are curious, and I think that is great.
As for yeah, hello. Okay. As for me, my experience was that Mackenzie did screen 2 years almost before the pandemic, and I screened at a lot of US festivals, and I was there. I could attend, for example, the premiere in South by Southwest. It was an incredible experience, and the queer festivals I haven't attended because they went online, but I have attended some festivals as well in Greece, and I think that were general festivals. And I think that was the biggest difference in me, the culture and how aware of queerness is culture, for example, comparing to, for example, Austin culture. So why is a festival, a general festival, but it's very queer friendly, of course. So in the wherever I screened, there would be somebody in the audience, a trans person or a non-binary person that could come to me and tell me how they connected with the story, especially in South by, the mom of, there was a documentary, it was screened along with a documentary about a trans boy, a trans athlete, and living in Texas, and his mom came and said to me, what I saw in your film was my boy before transitioning, and the angst that he was going through, and you know, she was shaking. So that was really, really fulfilling for me to be able to you know, connect with folks, but it also connected with you know, straight people, and in a way. And in Greece, what I realized is that nobody understood. I mean, they liked the film, they did like the film, but they didn't get the subtleties and the nuances. They didn't get that, but they connected in a different way, I guess. That this person is exploring the femininity, for example. So because it's quite a conservative still culture that needs more, I guess, awareness and education.
It's really interesting, the experience of screening, hearing what it's like to play these films for audiences internationally and how the response has differed. I would love to I want to ask some questions for Olivia and Jess, since I have two people who worked on a film together. So I'd love to hear from Olivia about how you got involved with TAHARA, what drew you to the script first.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I think normally it's so funny, like normally Jess will start like as the writer of the script, and I'm used to just like following it up. But long story short, like Jess did send me the script, and I came into it like having only read the log line, and though like Jess and I went to the same university, like we didn't know each other. So I kind of went into the whole thing like not knowing what to expect, and having this like notion from like other like trading with other people that your first feature is supposed to be something that you yourself have written, and that you shouldn't like take other people's scripts or whatever. So I went into it with all of that in mind, but then I read it and it was really funny and really sweet. And I think I really related, I think, especially to the character of Karín. And there's one scene in particular where one of the characters like pops a zit in the mirror. And I felt very strongly that that should be something that we see on camera, like in close up. And I wrote down like all the different ideas that I was having and gave them to Jess, thinking that, okay, maybe Jess will go and then direct the movie. And instead you were like, okay, so are you doing it? And by the end of like, we had like this 3-hour long conversation where I was saying like, oh, I think these parts should be animated. We'll shoot in a square aspect ratio and all these different things. And yeah, Jess was just so excited, I think, every step of the way about all these different things. So that's kind of what attached me to it.
And you brought up animation, so I would also love to hear about when you knew you wanted animation to be in the film. And Jess, if that, I'm assuming that wasn't in your script, but what it was like to either write for that or conceive of adding that in if it came later.
Yeah, so always in the script were these moments of sort of like magical realism, these ideas where in the film, the animated moments are these moments of like sort of romantic expression in the character's point of view. And I was really interested in that as a concept. I think so much of like a teenage life is lived in your head. And so I wasn't sure how we would totally switch from like fantasy to reality, but something that attracted me to working with Olivia was that they had worked on all these amazing animated projects in college. And I was like, if anybody can figure out how to break with reality, I think it's Olivia. So Olivia, who came from this animation background, proposed animation, and from there kind of broke into the different forms we would use. So in the film, there's claymation, there's rotoscope, that really beautiful hand drawn, and there's also like some smaller pieces of animation in like certain moments of tension. And that really comes from a place of just like trying to show these different perspectives. And as a writer, that's like extremely exciting, because it's like you don't always get to like have those emotional like moments in a piece other than a facial expression. So it was exciting to take it to that like more visual level.
Did you want to add anything to that, Olivia?
Oh, I'm just sitting here. Yeah, I mean, I think I got started as a filmmaker in the animation department. Like I felt initially much more comfortable like learning all the different film techniques by drawing them myself. So that's kind of what got me into it. So ever since college and I started making films, all of my pieces have had these animated elements. So then it was kind of a no-brainer then to bring it into TAHARA, especially seeing these moments where the characters are kind of like fantasizing about what they would like to have happen. And then more than that, like I wanted them to feel like big moments. So though most of the film is in that sort of square box, like with the animation, I thought it would be the perfect time to just use the entire full frame.
It really is such a poetical device in the film. It's quite amazing, and I think it really, I think there's a lot that sets the film apart from like many of the queer coming of age like dramedy films that it also feels very familiar to. But I think that's one of those elements that really stands out. I
Thank
just
you.
noticed you said TAHARA. Is that how it's pronounced? Oh, sorry. Jess, we muted because the
No,
sound was feeding back.
no, it's good to mute. I'm all about a mute. But so it's sort of one of those words where like in English, you can say TAHARA or TAHARA. It's not wrong either way, but the correct pronunciation is TAHARA. But like if you were to say TAHARA, you'd still be right.
Can you talk about the meaning of the word and how, like, there's a very obvious reason why the film is called that, but I'd love for you to kind of go more into if you were thinking metaphorically about the characters as well, the living characters.
Yeah, of course. So it's actually pretty funny. The original title for the film is Tahrim, which is the burial shroud used in a Jewish burial. It's a white shroud that a Jewish body is buried in within like the pine coffin. But Olivia had made a film called Pangea that no one could ever like spell or pronounce, even though it's like a term, you know. I think it just still kind of eluded people, which is totally fine. But I think it can be frustrating as a filmmaker to be like, wow, no one is getting even how to spell this when you're trying to get people excited. So Olivia was like, let's talk about the title, like how attached are you? I was like, I'm attached to having sort of a very Jewish title and having something that feels larger than the story itself. You know, it's not going to be like the best friend kiss. I don't know. So we went with Olivia's roommate, who's also a Jewish person, was suggested TAHARA. And there was something about it that I feel like even more so speaks to the film that we were creating together. And that's kind of how we got into that, got settled on that as a title. The ritual is like this cleansing, washing of the body. And I think what we're seeing over this course of this day is sort of like a washing of like an identity between all of the characters. It's a little metaphorical and very Jewish.
Awesome. I'm so glad. I've been wanting to ask you about that for a while. So it was really great to hear all of that backstory from you. I do, since Anna mentioned that a lot of people have asked specifically about intersex identity and understanding what being intersex means and not asked about the technical side, I want to take a moment and acknowledge on the technical side that all of these films have like just gorgeous cinematography and editing, and the performances are so naturalistic and gorgeous in your film and in these films. And so I would love to hear, kind of starting with Anna and Artemis, about that process, like specifically the sort of cinematic language of the film, the visual element. Oh, sorry, I muted you. Can you unmute?
Yeah. So the start. I'm Mackenzie. I work with Sarah Hennigan on the cinematography. We had worked together like 2-3 times already, and so we knew each other and what we were going for. And she, I don't know. We tried to follow the action, of course. We wanted in the parking lot, the garage. Sorry, we really wanted this contrast, these dark shadows to exist in the room, one thing that was really important to us was the mirror scene, of course, that we wanted to capture this sort of distance but connection, like seeing oneself for the first time in a different light, but also not connecting with what you see. So that was an important part of the film, and of course the dress was a big part of how the scene would look like as well. And in a way, I don't know, I also wanted to have a warm feeling about it. And yes, apart from that, it was a film that we made in UT Austin. So we had amazing resources from the university, really professional, and of course a very talented crew that was made up from MFA and bachelor students that are very well trained over there. So I was really, really lucky to have all these people around me.
The scene that you refer to with the character Mackenzie seeing themselves in the mirror is really one of the most profound depictions of gender dysphoria that I think I've seen on film, and in a way that I think would resonate for an audience who hasn't experienced that themselves.
I think it's quite, I think what people have told me is that they don't really understand. It is a mystery what Mackenzie is feeling. So every audience, somehow every viewer has a different sort of interpretation in a way, depending on their own experiences. So I like that to be a moment of mystery. However, if you try to analyze it more, you see that Mackenzie later on doesn't feel good about it. So it's not like they watch themselves with a dress and they feel okay, because you see how they react to the whole flirting after that. But one has to go and analyze it, I think, more to understand that. I mean, at least from the audiences that I talk to, anyway.
Thank you. Let's go to Anna, and I would love to hear about the experience and the cinematography in your film.
Yeah, actually, so because the journey of the main character is basically in the beginning she doesn't know basically anything. She doesn't know that she's intersex, and she doesn't know anything, but in the end, or towards in the end, everything opens up and she learns and she knows. So I in the beginning I was always thinking I want to have the frame, I want to be with her, I want to be when things are going on, I just want to see her face, and I also wanted a tight frame. But also because this is I did this film in the school, so I wanted to experiment also. And I don't know if you notice it, because I have talked to a lot of people that never noticed it, but the film starts in the aspect ratio of 4:3, and in the end it's in CinemaScope. So there's one scene where it opens up, and actually just got the idea from a film called Mommy. I don't know if you've seen it. And the director there does this I just got the idea from there. I wanted to try it out, and at first the cinematographer was I don't know, it's and I also got oh, it's kind of gimmick, and and I was yeah, but I still wanted to try it. And I actually think for me it kind of worked, because the feeling I got when the director in Mommy did this was this feeling of everything was opening up, and you were felt hope, and you were okay, because how he did it in Mommy was it's about a troubled teenager who doesn't listen and is really hard to deal with, and then there's a moment where it looks like things are gonna be okay, and that's where the frame opens up, and it has this I don't know, it's it does something to your brain or something. So yeah.
I also do want to ask, I mean, I first want to tell you, I guess, that it's so moving to see a movie where there is this character with a marginalized identity, like an LGBTQIA identity, specifically an intersex identity, which, as you've mentioned, a lot of people don't know about. And even this character, she doesn't know very much about. She knows like some things that have happened to her body medically, but she doesn't know what they mean. And it's really awesome and powerful to see a film where the people who care about her react positively and supportively and like treat her right. That's very rare, I think. And what like the film is really just beautifully made and the story is beautifully told. But beyond that, it is actually just like a positive story. And I wanted to bring that to audiences. So I would love for you to talk about that and kind of the like why you wanted to tell an intersex story and whether you were consciously making something that would kind of actually depict someone being shown care.
Yeah, that was definitely like on purpose. And I actually, when I was writing the script, I was like always getting these comments like that it wouldn't be believable that like, I don't know, the kids wouldn't bully her or that like people in general wouldn't be mean to her. And I was just like, I mean, maybe there's some truth to it, but like the reason I made the film is because like I have two cousins here in Iceland who are intersex, and they're like the only like openly intersex people in Iceland. But research show that like there should be at least like 5,000 or something, because 2% of the population have some like are intersex in some way, and you can be intersex in like 30 or more different ways, and it can be really small or really big and whatever. And you know, I was just like I always knew like that just some things like, okay, they can't have kids and like they were born like this, la la la, but I never understood this like term intersex until just a few years ago. And I was just like learning so much about it, and I just thought it was just like so amazing. And also like because they have really good like relationship with their parents, even though their parents kind of like made the mistake to allow these like surgeries to go through. But you can't blame the parents 100% because the doctors say like, we are trying to save your child. But what happens is like in this case, they like, because like they were born with like testicles instead of ovaries. And when you take the ovaries out, you know, they don't produce these hormones. And the doctors, at least here, and I think in many countries, they don't know, like, they don't have the experience in giving hormones. And if you give hormones through, like, I don't know, you know, these plasters or something, it's hard to get it right. And it means that their bodies like kind of fuck up and they don't function like they should. And but like they have told me like many intersex people tend to have like bad relationship with their parents, or at least some things like blow up because the parents are the one who make the like final decision of the surgery. But like at least in their both cases, they like, of course there were they had to go through like a lot of things, and it wasn't just like, oh, okay, fine, but they like got through it. And like, yeah, I don't know. And also just like we kind of control, you know, like I feel like people who make films can control how we view things. I don't know if it sounds cheesy, but if we show like people who are different getting treated in a good way, I think it makes a difference. And yeah, so I kind of just wanted to do that.
Thank you so much for the depth of that answer and for kind of sharing the whole story around the film. It was really, it's really good to hear. And I think that absolutely resonates for me as a viewer, that what you depict on screen can have an influence in people's lives. I want to ask, I saw in an interview, I don't remember where, but I saw somewhere about TAHARA that Jess, you went to the Hebrew school where the film is made. Can you talk about, like, I guess I kind of want to ask a broader question to everyone about if you care to disclose, based on what Anna just said about like, your relationship to the film, whether that's your own queerness or relationship to the characters, or whether that is something more specifically concrete to like, oh yeah, this was filmed in a place where I had my coming of age experiences. So if we can start with you, but then kind of open that question up a little bit.
Yes, absolutely. Yes, we filmed TAHARA at Temple Bethel in Rochester, New York, where I grew up. That is the synagogue that I attended Hebrew school, and I was bat mitzvahed there, and my parents are still congregants. So we were very, very lucky in that regard. It was so, it was kind of surreal to work there, to shoot the film there and like be in the bathroom that I think of when I wrote the script, with the green tile and all of that. But the script is not based off of like a true story. It's more based off of sort of an amalgamation of teenage feelings and angst. I wrote the script when I was 19. I was studying at Northwestern, and I was very scared to not be a teenager anymore. So I think I was really going to capture those teenage experiences. And I was thinking of spaces where I think I felt the most like a teen, like the most like uneasy in my body, uneasy in my mind, but also like confident as hell and like all that sort of stuff. And I really think Hebrew school is a space that I was drawn to because I had never seen something set in that kind of like Jewish American environment. And so I kind of wanted to come at it with like all the intrigue and drama of a high school movie, but with the specificity of place in my life. And I mean, it was unbelievably generous that they let us film there for the 15 days that we made the film and tear it all up and put it all back together. And I think it really added like a level to the film, because I think in a way we felt like the youngest people, other than, you know, the preschoolers, the youngest people in the space, because, you know, synagogue attendance in the US at least, or specifically in Rochester, is definitely dwindling amongst younger people. It's definitely a lot of older folks. And so it was kind of, we were kind of like the teens of the space. So there was kind of some meta feeling going on there.
That's incredible. And Olivia, I know that from what I've read, it sounds like it was you who, when you came onto the film, said that you wanted the lead character, Carrie, to be a Black Jewish character, which I think has been really groundbreaking for a lot of audiences to see. There are, of course, a lot of Black Jewish people, but I think, and a lot of queer Jewish people, and a lot of Black queer people, and Black queer Jewish people, all of it. But I think seeing all of those identities together on a screen, with this really excellent acting and just a really like deep story, is uncommon and incredibly refreshing for audiences. So with regard to any of that, I would love for you to comment on like how you relate to Carrie or the film itself, the story that it tells.
Yeah, I mean, I think I want to point back to what Anna said, which I thought was really powerful, actually. Now that you think about this a while, as artists, like it is our responsibility, I think, to think very critically about how we are perceiving the world. Like you're right on with that. Because I mean, it's one thing to just be like a viewer and to be like taking in like art and whatnot. But if you are making a film, yeah, it is our duty, I think, as cultural workers to be thinking about like what kind of images we're making for people, because a lot of times that is how people are like seeing the rest of the world. And so I know personally, like a lot of like Jewish people of color, so it's kind of like not a big deal, I think, for me to come into this film and say like, oh yeah, I think that this character reminds me of me and I'm Black. So like, why might she can be Black too. But, and I think, you know, that is something I know very well, is like that queer Black teenage experience, and being like maybe one of the only Black people in a predominantly white space. And I thought that it fit the film really well. But that said, I think we did open casting for Carrie. In fact, for possibly all of the parts, actually, because I think I didn't have a specific image in mind of like what Judaism would look like in any of our characters. So we kind of left it up to who could play the part the best. And we got really lucky with Madeline Gray DeFries coming in as Carrie, who played it with this really great range and emotionality. Like her face, I think, is so I don't know, emotive. Like she's able to play sad like very, very well, where she'd be like laughing and running around on set and then just get on screen and like look like she's about to be weeping. So yeah, it worked out really well, but thank you for noticing that.
And I'd love to go to Artemis to hear about anything that you want to say about why you wanted to tell this story of Mackenzie.
Yeah, the story evolved, I think, in the screenwriting process. I had definitely the love scene in my head when I started that, and I really wanted to capture the experience of the first time, and then it sort of the character sort of started growing in me. But I collaborated with an American screenwriter because I felt an outsider to tell a story in Texas, and I wanted to have a reality and authenticity. However, we did build the story together, and I did, I talked with folks about their experiences, but for sure, how we develop a character comes out of us, how we understand and how we process our experiences and our feelings. So I went back a lot in my teenage years for sure, trying to figure out how it felt, because I did grow up I guess I grew up in a very different society and time than Texas now, that young teenagers are very gender aware, wherever I did grow up in a very binary society that we didn't know. I didn't know even that there was trans people, So I think that is that sort of mystery, I think, carries on in the film as well.
Thank you. We have just 2 minutes left. So I think I'm just going to broadly ask all of you what you're working on now or what's next. And this is like a speed round for answers. I'll go to Olivia first.
We're still trying to sell this film. So please follow us on Instagram. We're at TAHARA the film. Yeah, we're excited for people to be able to go out and see it. I have like a feature film coming up, a show coming up, but I'm excited for people to see this one.
Yeah, I'll follow that up. Still trying to sell this movie. If we want to get it to people, so we're hard at work on that. Personally, I'm working on another queer Jewish television show and, a very kind of crazy comedy feature, and that's what I'm up to.
Somebody buy TAHARA. I want more audiences to be able to see it. What's going on for you, Anna?
Hi, yeah. Do you hear me? Yeah. Now, like, I am actually writing a feature film. I will probably not do it like for the next years, but it's like a coming of age queer film about like teenagers that go to like Christian summer camps here in Iceland, which like was a thing that I did. So yeah, I'm working on that. And I'm gonna try to make a short this summer and use it to apply for schools. I'm gonna go somewhere and study more.
Awesome. And last but not least, Artemis, what's up next?
Yeah,
for
I
you?
am in post-production. I'm just actually looking picture for a next short that I did here in Greece, and it's I don't know, it's a fantastic, I guess, folk tale with neorealist way of working with locals in a small community, post-industrial community in Greece. So very, very different, but I'm really happy and excited to start this new journey.
Thank you all so much for being here today and genuinely, thank you for making these films. They are fantastic, and I'm so glad that we've been able to program them at Alexander Valley Film Festival and bring them to audiences all the way here in Northern Sonoma County. Best of luck with what's next. I know we have to finish now, so I'll get off.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Okay, bye.